Welcome everyone to Therapeutic Astrology Podcast by me, Mannah, and today my special guest, Maurice Fernandez. And usually I do these interviews with thought leaders, with teachers online, but today we're here together.
In Stockholm.
In Stockholm, in person, because you are quite the traveler, aren't you?
I am, even though I try to manage it a little better.
Uh-huh. You are also a great astrologer, not only traveler, but a great astrologer, my personal teacher, been for many years, and people can find plenty of your teachings online. But today we thought to engage a bit in a theme that I feel is, I'm curious to see what you think about this, Maurice, but with someone like you who has so much data, so much on your mind, so much information, it could be when you have to talk about a topic, you could almost go to this section, this book, open it up. But this theme, I feel, is almost the whole library in a way, because it's about past lives, and it's, as I hear it, it's like a basis of your work and your interest, that is past lives as it is reflected in the astrology.
Yeah, my main focus through evolutionary astrology is to understand the soul journey.
Yeah.
So what this means is understanding that there's purpose to our existence. There's an intention to the universe, but also to our individual lives. Mm-hmm. So past lives is a component in that framework to understand the soul journey, because people go through all kinds of experiences, whether it's emotional changes and breakups and all kinds of developmental stresses and opportunities. And we can go and look at the symptoms. I went through this. How do I take my Valium and gloss over it? So our hope through this approach is not only to treat the symptoms, but to try to get to the core reason why things happen the way they do. And that's the nature of this work, to use the astrology chart, not just to look at the symptoms, your mother was overbearing, or, you experienced a loss of some sort, but where is it coming from? And so when we look at the soul and understand that it is a journey, we can understand better intentions. So we don't have all the answers, but we try to get as deep as possible.
Through how it is reflected in the birth chart or in charts in astrology. But so when you say past lives is a component, is it not more than that?
I mean, when you speak about the soul journey, you understand that your existence didn't start with this birth.
Yeah.
When we speak about a journey, we speak about definitely the fact that there's a reason why we come in at a certain time, at a certain place, a certain century, a certain culture, and even, certain family conditions. Now, the immediate association is, if you have a difficult life, you must have been a horrible person in a past life. And so it's not going like that, it's not simplistic. And, good people can have difficult experiences and bad people can have wonderful lives, so to speak.
Yeah.
So we, by looking at the astrology, we can have a more objective view of what's going on. And past lives give us an understanding that, once again, I can ask you, you have your birthday coming.
Yeah.
And I can ask you, were you born on this time and this place randomly? Was it just, labor and whatever was happening at the hospital? Was it something that was completely a random act, or was there an intentional circumstance, reason based on your past lives?
Yeah.
And why you're coming back, in this way.
I think it is so important to find that meaning, because if it's not there, it's like it doesn't matter what you do or what you don't do.
And the argument is always people want meaning, and so they force.
That's the risk.
Maybe your life is meaningless, and we're trying to impose all kinds of fancy ideas. But for those who understand, I'm a Scorpio, and so I don't just want to, find some kind of comforting philosophy. I'm doing this because I see it working.
Yeah.
And I've done research as much as it's possible, because it's not easy to do research about past lives. It's not like you go to the library and it's something that requires a lot of time and opportunity to suddenly, from an astrological point of view, when
see patterns.
Not only see patterns, but sometimes people do remember past lives. And then the jackpot for us is that if we have the chart for the past life and the chart for this life, for the same soul, and being able to understand, there's a thread.
Yeah, that's
I'm going to talk about this actually more in depth also coming up on March 17 at the New York Meet Up Astrology Group. So if you're interested.
Great. Yeah, so this is just some cliff notes, just to get an idea of also what we're actually talking about is also karma, right? This term
karma is part of the past life. It's not only karma.
Really? Okay.
I make a distinction between karma and evolutionary necessity.
Right.
So karma, and some people can use the term karmic astrology.
Yeah.
For me, karma is more specific to understanding some kind of reaction and consequence for certain actions. And it's not just actions, it can also be intentions. It can also be the lack of action.
Yeah.
If you didn't do something, you can have consequences the same way that if you did something.
So but then, karma is related to consequences in your terminology.
Yeah.
And then the rest of what we're meant to do here is
evolutionary impulse or necessity. So when we speak about karma, let's say, I worked very hard and I made sure that everybody's safe, so there can be good reaction to that, a good consequence, and I can reap what you saw. Evolutionary necessity is when you complete a cycle. Let's say, this life was for you about learning to be more engaged, to take charge of your destiny, to, not be passive, but learn to be more active.
Yeah.
It's not because you did something or did not do something. It's just that this is now what's on your chapter.
So that is completed.
It's completed, and so you're now opening a new lesson, a new process. And it has nothing to do with karma.
Okay.
It's just the motion of evolution. It's the same way that, a child becomes an adolescent. It's a natural progression. It's not because of karma that they're now an adolescent. So that's part of the evolutionary development and necessity.
Yeah, that there's just is that development in the universe.
Exactly. Because ultimately, what are we doing? As we have a chart, what is astrology? It's a study of time. It's a study of cycles. So now I'm a Scorpio, you're a Pisces. Why? Because I was born in November and you were born in March. So I have an experience that gives me more of what Scorpio is about. But if we look at both our charts, we have all the same planets. And we have all the same signs.
Everyone does.
What is the difference?
Yeah.
A little bit of more of this, a little bit more of that. So if we take time and space, we're all everything.
Yeah.
But
okay. Yeah.
with the chart, we end up being more of this, less of that. And what I want to say basically is that from an evolutionary point of view, part of our lesson is to experience everything. So
at
now,
some point.
Yeah. Now you're gonna. So we take the film called life and universal consciousness, and we break it into many lives. So in this life you have this experience. In that life you have that experience, and at the end of the game you are everything.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah. Yeah, and when you asked me, does it matter how you put it with my, my birthday, and I mean, but it's so clear, this knowledge, when you've seen it, you can't unsee it. It's like, it so describes me, I also do therapy, and sometimes it's hard for me to hold in how much this person is just talking about, even just the sun sign. Yeah. It's crazy sometimes, how much these archetypes takes us over. And I had a comment more because you're talking about the root cause of why we are here. That is also what we talk about in a way in trauma therapy. Maybe we don't use the terminology about why we are here, but this is why you're experiencing what you're experiencing. It's like, so there's something very similar.
Absolutely.
To trauma therapy and evolutionary astrology.
I mean, I think that many people are moving in this direction of using astrology in therapeutic practices. It's not, in the mainstream, but we see how they can complement each other and save time, to get to the core of things in 2 sessions instead of 20. But there's something, if we talk about past life, there's something about, at least what I know of psychology, that I think is astrology definitely adds a layer to it.
Yeah.
Because from my exposure to therapy in outside astrology, we're going to look at your current life, at your choices, and then we're going to look back at where it may come from childhood.
Exactly.
But then it stops there.
Yeah.
Sometimes things are not rooted in childhood. And study of past life is something that's very rich and gives context. That's why it's important, because it gives a spiritual perspective to our lives. And We can analyze our lives practically. What are your goals? Where are you going? You can analyze your life emotionally. How do you want to feel and what makes you feel good and how are you going to heal? So a sense of well-being. But then you can also analyze your life spiritually with those big existential why.
And then that, of course, makes a lot of sense. That what you're saying, that it's really, it takes some maturity and some mistakes to learn from. And so each of us has to be critical consumers as we are clients. I don't know if consumer is the right word, but practitioners. But I mean, when we consult astrologers, we also need to be critical, about what we hear. So from that position, we also need that critical stance.
We need to have a dialogue, and that is something that hasn't always been, a center point in astrology.
Yeah.
But there are more organizations now, such as ISAR and OPA, who are doing work on consulting, learning consulting skills.
Where it's more of a dialogue. You have astrology.
It's about learning how to best unpack this knowledge. And this is also something that I teach in my program, that it's essential to not just learn what an aspect is, what astrology is, but how to communicate it.
Yeah. But I think when you say dialogue, I think about Pluto in Aquarius, this time we're in, but it's even started before that, so I'm not sure what I can relate it to, but it's like we have reinvented, refound, rediscovered dialogue online, right? We do this, and it is so important. And I know for me as an interviewer for a long time, I began by feeling like this was the guru, and I was so lucky to just hang on to every word this thought leader would say, to it becoming a lot more Aquarian like that. Like, we are in this together. You know more than me, but like we have equal respect for each other.
Yeah.
And that is something I really want to pursue, that dialogue-based.
I think it's important, and I think the critical mind is important. But what you're saying, touches on something vast and definitely part of today's reality, the issue of respect.
Yeah.
Because we see today that so many people who are in position of power, authority, are exposed as, in situations of abuse, situations of deception or whatnot. And there's a lot, because of that, there's a lot of cynicism.
Yeah.
And sometimes, from, like you say, putting a guru on a pedestal and, kind of abiding to everything they say, absolute submission, you can have the opposite, where everyone has a target on their back. And, we know about the Epstein file, and I keep seeing online how, with so much trauma and pain, people are so disillusioned that nothing is sacred. Nobody is trustworthy. And it creates anger towards people who are teachers and authority, and then they become, a target.
I really want to hear your comment on that. What should we do? Because I feel like that as well. We just have an election now in Denmark. It was just yesterday pronounced that there's an election, and so this starts again. Like, who can we trust?
Yeah.
Who's gonna disappoint us the most?
I think, like you say, and that's something that we learn with nature. When you meet a predator, you see a leopard or a crocodile, or you have to be respectful, to know their boundaries, to know your boundaries, so that everyone integrates the way they're supposed to. So I think respect and compassion is number one in our practice.
For
But
ourselves, not towards
everything, towards any person who's living, because we all have a story.
Yeah, okay, like that.
We all appear to be, especially, if you're in the public eye, you all can easily be a
target.
The punching bag.
Yeah, a punching bag. The story can be twisted.
And so the other side of this is the teacher pretending that they are know-it-all.
Yeah.
That they never fail. That, are they arrogant? Do they walk their talk? So there are certain things that everyone deserves to have a dialogue and find out, are you, if we talk about a politician, are you cutting my access to health care while you are, plundering all the resources?
Yeah.
So if there's such an hypocrisy and double standards, then, your criticism and protest is justified.
Yeah.
But we also need to understand we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And so are we as leaders, if I am running for Denmark's election and I'm saying, I want to save Denmark from U.S. invasion and whatnot, am I going to present it in a way that brings courage, brings inspiration, but also brings realistic expectations?
Okay. And we're talking about this because of the time we're in. We should mention it, the great shift that we are in. Neptune, Saturn, and Aries, this new chapter, and you've spoken a lot about it. You've written about it in your book. That's a long time ago that it was published, and you were already ahead, seeing what would come here. So I have a few questions for that. Relating it to what we're talking about now with our leaders, I also feel I can hear the symbolism of Neptune, where you're also inviting to be compassionate and like we all make mistakes. And then also a question about, are we supposed to be here? Did we reincarnate at this certain time because of this certain mission? Is that how you see it?
You mean in the present, in this time?
Yes, because some people will say this is the only reason why you chose to incarnate is because of what is happening right now, going to happen.
There's always a question, if we are souls and there are 8 billion people now, as opposed to 100 years ago, there were, 3 billion. So there are many more souls incarnated at this time, at the same time. And we can get into a lot of, again, how come, where are they coming from, and this kind of thing. But to speak about your question specifically, it's so vast. I don't think I can answer the whole thing, but a recent question that I had from someone in Iran, when many people died recently as a result of the crackdown and killing protesters in the streets. And by the thousands, it's not just one person in front of a tank, body bags.
Oh, man.
And so the question is, what is their purpose?
Yeah.
Why did they have to suffer such consequence. And it is a Neptunian question because Neptune represents what the collective experiences at the same time. So it takes away the separation between who am I as a Maurice with my chart, and who are we as a nation, and who are we as people, and who are we as species. So Neptune can collectivize an experience. And that also means, like COVID, right? When one person is infected, it spreads. Everybody can be infected. But when one person is saved, everybody can also be saved.
Saver. Yeah.
So there's something about definitely having our individual role, like what are you as a podcaster going to do in this time to advance, bring light where there's darkness. But there's also a movement. What are we doing? What are the values? We talk about the collapse of trust with Saturn, Neptune, and it's been years. We don't trust the banks. It's not just leaders. We don't trust the doctors. We don't trust the financial system. Science is in question. Things that were the pillars that gave us a sense of security and hope that, these people know what they're doing.
Yeah.
These people, have made the studies, and then it's not as black and white any longer. So there's a global sense of insecurity along with this sense of fragility. But part of Neptune in Aries, and again, we look at cycles, it's a 165-year cycle. And if we go back in that time, it was also a period of a lot of chaos and creation. It was also volcanic. There was a civil war in the United States in 1861 when this all happened. But remember that this civil war brought freedom. It liberated people who were slaves. So are we just repeating history? Are we doing things differently? We hope we're doing things differently.
Okay, two things. First of all, I think you did a great job of answering that question because it was a very big question I gave you there. Good job. Second, but it's not exactly the same because there's even a further shift where the outer planets are shifting into different elements. And so there's a bigger shift going on now, right? So it's actually, we can't look back to when Neptune was in Aries and say this is probably going to be the same because it's different.
Absolutely. And but it's the same ingredient in a different context.
Okay.
I mean,
yeah, okay.
If you are baking a cake and it's a different cake, but it's still the same flour and the same butter. This is why astrologers are only able to understand the themes. We see what type of, like we say, we talked about this time years ago. I wrote an article, it's in the book, but I didn't write Epstein files that would, create a cascade of repercussions. So there's a difference between understanding the intention, understanding what the theme is, what type of period this is, versus saying, it's going to happen in 1, 2, 3 steps. And the reason is that nobody, even if you're a psychic and you can see the future, I trust from what I have experienced is that we can also change the future.
Yeah.
It's
okay.
It's part of the free will factor. And astrology gives us a beautiful map for that. That some things are predestined. You can't change your chart, right? You cannot become a Libra if you are a Pisces. So free will has its limits.
Yeah.
But you can use this energy in a productive way or in a destructive way. And so we cannot always anticipate exactly what will happen, but what we understand it.
Would you wish that you could? Would you wish that you could have
I mean,
said,
not really. I maybe, from a comfort point of view, it would be maybe...
nice to know.
It would be nice to know, and it will also be an ego thing, I know.
Yeah.
But deep down, I'm glad we have the opportunity to change the script and not just be, this is it, and that's... Because then we go back to what's the point.
Yeah. But so egotism, that reminds me of what you said earlier around Neptune in Aries, and we can ask about my own purpose in this, what is going to happen for me specifically. But do you see that this is a step away from that kind of individualism?
I am one, and that's part of my statement in the Neptune book, is that many spiritual bodies of knowledge will speak about the ego being a trap, and the ego being something that keeps you attached and keeps you away from self-realization. But I think that God created an ego in order to serve a purpose.
Yeah.
So individuality, if we look at astrology, is fire signs. And we have fire signs because we need individuality.
We need them, yeah.
But if you look at the sequence, we start with a fire sign, but then, which is Aries, and then we end the fire sign first. Sagittarius is the last fire sign, and then there are 3 more signs of the other elements. So individuality serves you until it doesn't. Until you have to find a better place for it. So it's part of evolution. It's part of maturity, is that the ego is your engine, it's your control room, it's where everything is centralized. It's why we're here.
Yeah.
But then we get to the point where we have to grow beyond it.
And is that the invitation now, would you say?
In some ways, it's very Neptune in Aries, because Aries is so individualistic, and Neptune is so collective and global, and there's a melting of identities. And that's why we see in the world where some people with this Neptune in Aries are being erased. Their individuality is silenced.
Oh, okay.
We look at Palestinians, we look at, any kind of people who are oppressed, who are losing themselves. So they're losing their identity, where on the other hand, there are those who, use too much of it. But I suspect with Neptune in Aries that that's part of the lesson. The lesson about Neptune in Aries is to find your sovereignty, to find your individuality, not just for yourself, so that you can help the world more effectively.
Yeah, and then that becomes meaningful, powerful for yourself as well. But just I'm sitting a little bit in what you were talking about with the killings and people just dying, then that's really difficult to find like a personal meaning in that, unless we don't know lives. We don't know.
Yeah. Each one has a story.
Yeah.
But we live now in a time with this Neptune in Aries where people are either erased or they are overpowering.
Interesting. Yeah, okay.
And there's no middle ground yet, at least on a collective level. Because both are necessary. You know, we need to find our voice without being victimized. But we need to find our voice without silencing others.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, that's part of the United States chart. It has a Neptune-Mars square,
Okay.
which is similar.
It's the same archetype.
Archetypically to Neptune in Aries. And it's the land of the free, the land of the brave.
Yeah.
But that freedom was at the cost of erasing the Native American and deleting the rights of Africans. So freedom came at the expense of someone else's slavery. And that's why, again, you go back a cycle and you realize that the Civil War was about breaking that pattern. So that freedom is not just for one type of people at the expense of another, but freedom is a collective Neptune experience. Everyone has the same right for freedom. And I hope that as we now just enter this cycle, I hope that it's going to create its own wave where from the extremes we're going to be able to have liberation movements.
Yeah, because I'm only truly free if you are as well.
I mean, it's not always like that.
No, but really. Right?
Ultimately, yes. But, you know, if you ask a slave owner, they're very free, and someone else is not very free.
Yeah.
And that can work well for them. But you're right that at the end of the game, the frustration of the slave will affect the freedom of the master owner.
Yeah.
Because it's going to eat from the inside. It's going to create anger. It's going to create toxicity. It's going to create violence. It's not going to work on the long term.
Okay, but in the growth cycle, it was important for us to come here and be part of whatever new era this is.
I mean, there's a big cycle. You know, we talk about the outer planets, but we can also talk about the ages. You know, we are at the tail end of the Pisces age, the beginning of the Aquarius age, which is going to probably take us to intergalactic travel and consciousness. There are multiple cycles of ending and beginnings that we're measuring.
Right. I have one more question. It's just that can you just have a redo? I mean, this question comes up.
A redo?
Yeah, like, okay, I couldn't make it happen in this life. So can I just have a second chance? Like, can it help us psychologically to think like that?
I think that it is absolutely what's happening. And one of the studies that I do when we analyze this process is to not just look at your birth chart, but at the death chart. So the death chart is the moment you're expiring from this incarnation and your soul exits the body. And usually, unless it's, assisted suicide or suicide, usually you don't choose death. You don't choose your time of death.
No.
But even if you were, like I worked with people who did assisted dying, and we were looking at dates. But, you know, they ended up getting the injection and they died many hours later. So there's something about the soul that knows when it needs to come in and when it needs to leave.
Wow. Yeah.
That is beyond our control. So what I want to say is that when we look at the death chart, one of the realization is that it tells you what have you completed, where are you at the end of this cycle, and what you're still working on.
But then it's kind of too late. Like you can't see your own
No, you can't.
death chart.
But just know
Yeah.
that whatever you do now, whatever you think, whether it's an active or it's a passive response, is registered. It matters
Yeah.
because we see it in your death chart.
Yeah.
So everything, when we, you know, for me, part of the study of the death chart is that I realize, wow, everything has meaning. Nothing is getting lost. And if you, I don't know, killed somebody and nobody caught you, it's going to be there.
It's gonna be there.
It's going to be seen.
Yeah.
So that gives us, I think, an understanding that there is meaning and that it is staying, it's registered, and it's part of this evolutionary process. And so from your point of view, yeah, when we're not meant to work and finish and complete and master everything, right?
Good.
There's something about that idea of, oh, I don't want to reincarnate any longer, so I want to be done.
Yeah.
Which,
Yeah.
you know, can be a
about
good, it can be a good motivation.
Yeah.
But sometimes when you try too hard, you fail more. So
That's really not up to us, right? Somehow that's not
I mean,
up to us.
what is not up to us is, how to put it, you know, it's accepting our blind spots. You know, we think we know, but then, oh, I didn't see that. But at the end of the day, if you try too hard, if you become too attached to, oh, this is my last incarnation, you tend to make more mistakes.
Because even that is probably a mistake, that you think it's your last reincarnation.
That is in itself showing that there's a spiritual pain there.
Spiritual pain, yeah. So my last question, I'm gonna try to put two in there in one, but it is in this podcast. I usually look at my guest's birth chart, but I'm just gonna do that in a little different way with you, and that is to ask you what you think. And do you feel that you know? Have you sensed into? I'm sure you have sensed into. What have you sensed into in terms of your own past lives? And this is the second part of the question. Do you think, because today we speak about neurodiversity, if that had been around when you were a child, do you think you would have been categorized as such? Here you go.
Okay. You know, one of the things about past lives that to me, you know, kind of was very compelling from the very beginning is that I got into astrology very early. And I remember one day that somebody, you know, I started doing readings when I was 20 years old. And somebody came, because we were not doing readings online at the time. So they came for the reading, and they knock on the door, and they say, I'm here for the consultation. And they say, where is your father? Because they, like, you, little buddy, are not going to, you're not going to do my chart. So I had wisdom that was beyond my years, and I had an understanding of astrology that was remembering it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I remembered it. It was not, of course I continue to learn techniques and whatnot, but it was definitely an old knowledge that was just in my unconscious.
People speak about that experience with something like astrology.
Look at Mozart, right? He and his sister, they had incredible talent that you can suspect didn't just come from practical, step by step, going to class, taking notes, and practicing many hours. It came from somewhere else.
Yeah, and even the interest in it, even wanting to do it. But so are you saying...
And that's one thing, because in my environment, whether it's family, where I grew up, there was zero encouragement to be an astrologer, or it was not a question. There was an astrology book in the shelf, and that got me hooked, but there was also an astrology book about fixing cars.
Just a book, not an astrology book.
I said, there were several books, but I went to the astrology book, not to the mechanical engineering.
Yeah exactly. So are you saying that you can see that you've been an astrologer in past lives? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Probably not an evolutionary astrologer, though.
That's a big question, because technically evolutionary astrology is a modern interpretation that is more process oriented. We look at astrology not from a fated, this is who you are and that's it, but from a process oriented, that's what you're becoming. Anyway, it's a relatively modern thing, but if you look at the philosophy of understanding the soul journey, it's
that's
not
ancient.
new. The Indians did it. It's in every indigenous tradition. And the Greek spoke of the soul.
Yeah.
And, another interesting factor is that my mother comes from an island in Greece that's called Kos. And that's where the first astrology school was built in ancient Greece. So there's probably some connection there.
That's a suggestion. Yeah.
It's a suggestion, and there's a thread there that both we can look at the chart and we can look at the actual experience.
The present life, yeah. But so, and what about neurodiversity?
I don't think I would be...
You're not a candidate?
I'm not a candidate.
Okay.
It's interesting because I can feel on the one hand very alienated from this world.
Yeah.
But I could find my way. I feel like I integrated relatively well in my body, but who knows, maybe there's more I will reveal and discover.
Yeah, of your alien parts. But okay, so but thereby you're also saying it's just I would like your comment on neurodiversity, but do we agree that it's really a Uranian signature in the chart? It's an Aquarius phenomena, even though there are many different signatures that could relate to this theme of neurodiversity.
Neurology is Aquarian Uranian.
Yeah.
Our brain is our tallest organ, and Uranus has to do with heights because it has to do with reaching to the sky. It's electricity. Electricity comes from the neurological system. That's what activates the heart. So, yes, neurology is a Uranian signature. However, I would combine Pisces and Uranus.
Yes, for sure.
Because these are the two archetypes, Aquarius, Pisces, Uranus, Neptune, that are beyond the physical.
Mm.
They are the part of us that are disincarnated. So they are beyond the boundary of Saturn, which, if they are strong in the chart, with certain aspects and certain emphasis, that can include a lot of 11 house, 12 house as well, that can lead to a gap between spirit and form. Between because that's what I believe neurodivergence is. If we bring an umbrella to it, because there are so many different conditions, but it has to do with integration into form.
Okay, that's a challenge.
And part of what's happening is that Neptune and Uranus operate at a very different speed.
Yeah.
And that's part of our neurology. Our brain goes faster than our body. And that can lead to gaps.
Yeah.
So that is part of the archetype, and that is in itself an evolutionary challenge.
That's really interesting. Yeah, okay, thank you for that comment on it, because it is something that so many people experience and so many diagnoses in this direction is given. And I just really feel that astrology can say something about that as well.
I suspect it can. Again, with being cautious about not overgeneralizing. Because it's not just one reason why.
No. Okay. To be continued on that theme. Thank you so much, Maurice Fernandez. Now you have 4 days of speaking nonstop. Teaching
that was
people.
Good practice.
Yes, thank you.